Thank you, AI. All right, all right. Greetings, everyone. Happy to be here. Thank you for your patience. And yes, I'm excited to be with us for tonight and sharing our lesson for spiritual development and Bible study. So I am Minister Cole Williams. I am going to share my screen with you, and that way we'll have some content for tonight and go and flow with our Bible study. If you don't mind, let me know when you can see my PowerPoint presentation. Are you able to see the PowerPoint?
Nope.
Come on. Say that I'm sharing. Oh, I hit share. What's AI saying now? Don't tell.
Technical issues.
There's
They're currently trying to resolve the technical issues so that the study can begin. That's the main stuff happening so far in this meeting.
Please remember that
say you all caught up.
We are streaming now as well.
Oh, I forgot.
We are live.
This is a praise and worship song. We need one right now. Filling a gap.
Well, Minister, you can start teaching. We can get started.
Now my screen is frozen. Okay. Well, let's say we're going to be looking at the text found in the book of Luke, and book of Luke coming from the chapter 31 through 35. So I'm going to ask if someone can pull that up for me. I don't have it only typed out. I don't have it written
Chapter
down.
13.
Yes, it's chapter 13.
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please. Thank you so much. And which version are you happen to be able to read from?
I happen to be reading from the Word and Life Study Bible. It's a New King James.
Okay.
Okay. Luke chapter 13, verse 31 through 35 reads as so. On that very day, some Pharisees came, saying to him, "Get out and depart from here, for Herod wants to kill you." I love this. And he said to them, "Go, tell that fox, behold, I cast out demons and perform cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. Nevertheless, I must journey today, tomorrow, and the day following. For it cannot be that a prophet should perish outside of Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate, and assuredly I say to you, you shall not see me until the time comes when you say, Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Peace, for reading that for us. Okay. So let's see here. Let's get my notes, my offline version here. All right, so starting with verse 31, it talks about where it says the Pharisees came to Jesus, telling him to get out of here and go away, for Herod wants to kill you. Do you think that this was a warning to help Jesus? What do you thought? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, we got the PowerPoint up, it looks like.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
It's on the first page where it says welcome.
Yeah.
okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And you can see, okay, I just see it says participants can see my application. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I know for a fact I wrote down that's going to be one of my questions. Who wants to chime in? Let's talk about it.
Gotta read it again.
So yeah, could this have been a warning to help Jesus?
Here it is. Okay. Let me read it.
I was wondering that myself, considering that they are Pharisees, not to say that all of the Pharisees were against Jesus. There could have been some who actually believed in Jesus, and this could have been a warning for him to escape because Herod was coming after him.
Right. Yep, I thought that as well. The same, flow of consciousness that you just had, as like you said, not all were necessarily considered to be against him. And so just the tone of it for me, it's like kind of like a lookout. Oh, hey, I'm looking out for you, right? Like it says you need to get out of town. I mean, it could have been, considered as a threat, but I'm thinking, why would they even bother to say, Herod is trying to kill you?
Right.
Like, why give that extra? So, yep, I thought about that too. Anyone else? Okay, so let me see if I can advance ourselves these slides here.
The minister, I did want to respond.
Okay.
And I
Thank you.
appreciate that you and DC Sharon talked about the relationship between Jesus and those that were called Pharisees in a way that challenges or questions the general perception of that relationship. As we have seen in other scriptures, that Jesus did have a pretty cordial relationship with lots of people, the Pharisees. They were teachers, they were leaders in the community, and there were some times when Jesus was aligning with them. They supped together, they taught each other, and then there were times when Jesus was in disagreement with their theology and with their philosophies on how to treat people, or he challenged them so that they could really kind of follow their own laws. this is very important for us as we are in the Lenten season and as we prepare for the Easter season, because we want to make sure that we keep our eyes and ears open so that we don't perpetuate negativity around groups of people. And in this regards, the Pharisees, and then as we get closer to Easter, the Jews. So um, let's keep our eyes and ears open as we read these scriptures that lead us up to Easter, so that we can also be aware of how some of our perceptions are constructed by, various theologians and even historians that may or may not be accurate. And this relationship with the Pharisees, as you've described it, may actually indicate that we have to take another examination of what we think the Pharisees are like.
Mhm. Thank you, Pastor. That's good. Excuse me. Okay. All right. So let me just give you some, just a couple little nuggets that I found from, working through this and doing some back research on the text. So traditionally, I've shared this before in reference to the book of Luke, that it's traditionally a gospel attributed to Luke, although this gospel doesn't name that as the case as far as the author being Luke. Based on the book style and the knowledge of medicinal matters, it does suggest that it was written by a highly educated person. And Luke was a disciple. He was a disciple of Jesus and a physician in the first century Common Era. So most scholars concluded that based on the elements of the Gospel of Luke, that the author was a Gentile speaking to a predominantly Gentile community. Here we have Jesus speaking to the Pharisees who had interests, like we pretty much unpacked. We felt that they were concerned for his safety. This region was under Roman rule. We have Herod. This is the Herod known as Herod the Tetrarch. Refers to Herod Antipas, the son of Herod the Great. So not that, because I was thinking like, is this the one from where we heard the story about when Jesus was born, right? This is not that. This is the son of that one. But he ruled as a tetrarch, which means a minor ruler of Galilee and Perea. And so he is known for ordering the death of John the Baptist. And then later on, as we will, understand that he has a role in the trial of Jesus. Okay. All right. So this is just from the actual lectionary itself. I just copied and pasted because Sister Sharon, DC Sharon gave us her version of the text. I had it before this, which was actually from the Inclusive Bible. And this is where the text itself that we're unpacking tonight is from the Revised Lectionary, which I hope everyone still has their bulletin from like, 2 Sundays ago, which is pretty cool that we were able to give you that QR code. And it has all of the scriptures for the year that you'll find as far as the Common Lectionary. So it's really cool tool to have that you can download and keep it on your phone. You can even like add it to your calendar, which is pretty cool, but I digress. Okay. So here I'm just gonna just reference it again. And I actually have it for your reference as I ask these questions coming up next to make it easy for us to have as a talking point.
I like this version better.
Thank you. Thank you. I liked it too. So
Yeah.
here's what we have. All right, so 31, just reading through it, it says at the very hour, some Pharisees, so that helps us too, right? There were some, right, that came and said to him, get out of here. Herod wants to kill you. And then he says, go and tell that fox. I don't know about you, but I had like the whole attitude, thing going when I read that.
Yes.
Because he's like, go and tell that fox for me, right? I thought that was pretty cool. But he says, listen, I'm about business, right? He's like, I'm doing my work, casting out demons, performing cures today. He's got that going on today, tomorrow, and the third day.
Third.
That I need to finish my work, right? Yesterday and tomorrow and the next day, I must be on my way because it is impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. So here's just me. I'm just sharing my thought process as I read the text. I'm always like, what does he mean by that, right? So this is where my line of question is going to come from, right? And so in 34, he says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, this city that kills prophets. I'm like, whoa, who knew? And stone those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings. And he says, you were not willing. He says, see, your house is left to you. I thought that was pretty key. Makes it, personal to me is how I read it. And it's left up to me. And he says, I tell you, and you will not see me until the time comes when you say, right? Back to you. It's in your lap, in your corner. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. So here's where the line of question is, right? So we already talked about verse 31. Could this have been a warning in favor of Jesus, right? Now 32, do you think that Jesus was afraid, right? Like this is now like in the response how he's saying, go tell that fox, right? Do you think he was afraid? What do you think he meant? This is the next, thought process when he's talking about the third day, I finished my work. So let's talk about that. So just, look at 32 for me real quick. And he says, go and tell that fox for me. So what do you think? You think he was scared when they were telling him that Herod wants to kill him?
It
Not at
doesn't
all.
sound like it.
Doesn't sound like it, right?
I'll be
Right.
here today, tomorrow, and the next day, still casting out demons and
Yeah.
performing cures until
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
And then when I'm done and ready to go, I will leave.
Right.
Right.
That's so cool. Yep. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that because the second part of the question was, what did you think he meant by the third day I finished my work? I think another version that says until my mission is completed, right? So I've had different school of thoughts and the commentary that I read just based on that part alone. So I wanted to get your thoughts around that part. The third day I finished my work. What do you think the work is, basically?
It's
No,
not
right, well, take a stab.
crucifixion.
Okay. And
Is it
share
the
with me.
crucifixion?
Well, you share with me. What are your thoughts about?
Well, the third day. Yeah, that's what would be my guess.
Cool.
That it is when his work is over.
Yep. Nice. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Okay. So, Trustee Marley, I would say that I've read that it's like a both possibilities, okay? Because, it could be like from the literal, right? As DC Sharon was saying, like he's saying, like, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be casting out demons, performing cures. And so I'm going to be doing it, today, tomorrow, and then on the third, and also on this third day, right? On the third day that I'm going to finish. Like he's got it set, I guess, as far as the actions, the activities, right? And I've also come across commentary that stated, that he's basically foretelling, if you will, about the idea of what's going to take place as far as his crucifixion. So thank you for bringing that up and naming that. But I took it as just, the same as, he was unbothered. He wasn't scared. He's quite focused in the goal and as far as the work that needs to get done. So he's clear, in terms of the journey. And this piece about, let's jump into, I'm sorry. And then, about the fulfillment of, like I said, the death in terms of what's to come for him in Jerusalem. But let's go into like 33 real fast, where it's saying, he repeats yet today and tomorrow, the next day. He's saying now he needs to be on his way, right? Because he says it's impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. And I thought, wow, what is that, right? What does that mean? So from what I learned is that he's referring to apparently there is a historical pattern, if you will, that is known amongst the people, right? That prophets have been persecuted or killed in Jerusalem, okay? And so he's talking about that, and also there's a fulfillment here of prophecy of prophets being rejected and killed in this city. So I just wanted us to refer to this text that I came across. It's Matthew 23:34. The version that I found was I think it's called the English Standard Version, the ESV. Website, if you want to just go directly to it, is Bible Ref. That's Bible, the word, Bible, ref, REF, short for reference.com. And basically, like, in reading that, that's like pointing to in Matthew this this notion or this idea that this is what has happened, that prophets and people in Jerusalem as known as prophets are being killed or being stoned, basically being rejected, right? And persecuted, okay? But I want you to note that in no way is it that as far as the Bible is concerned, that all prophets died in Jerusalem. Like, that's not a thing, okay? And that the Bible doesn't explicitly detail, deaths of, most prophets, if you will, in terms of how they have, passed away. So I just wanted to give that as additional information in reference to him mentioning in terms of what it is being said overall in the text about there is a knowing of this in terms of that time or amongst the people and the culture. But there's also, like, in the scriptures, there's no like particular reference of, this is what always happens in Jerusalem, right? But it's also a fulfillment of how he's saying it's impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem. He's referring to himself, knowing that that's where he is to be crucified. Okay, so now in 34, 34 says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. So let's see what I got for us in line of questioning. So 33, 34, I wanted to know what's your reaction overall. I mean, it was for me like a lot to kind of process, and which is why I wanted to offer that additional background information about this idea of prophets, being stoned and killed in Jerusalem particularly. But yeah, if there's any reaction, feel free to share that. And then what's your reaction to Jesus using the metaphor of gathering children together like a hen who gathers her own? And I really wanted to see if, because our theme is about, compassion being actually, love in action. Do you see compassion in that verse there? And if so, share with me, like where or how. So may sound like a lot, but I think we could do it. Let's go back to the scripture. Like I said, if you have a reaction to just that whole part about the whole, Jerusalem being a place prophets are killed. If not, that's fine. But what's your reaction mainly to this metaphor about saying that he wanted to gather children together like him? And if you see compassion here. All right, so here we go.
Just using the hen as a metaphor is certainly compassionate. Usually you think of mother hens that are they're mothering. We've heard that before in fairy tales and different stuff. So I would say that is certainly an example of Jesus's compassion, using that phrase. Hens take care of their children.
Yeah, I like that. Yep. Anyone else?
We do know that Christ came to save the lost. And yes, he is showing compassion here. He said, I would have wanted to hurt you altogether, to protect you, to mother you, but you weren't having any of it.
Right.
You all were not having any of it. He said, a prophet is not welcomed in his own home. So they wanted pomp and circumstance. They didn't want him coming lowly and in the manger. How dare you? Not our Messiah. So they were not having it. And Christ knew that. He said, I tried to, be a mothering hen to you. Definitely showing compassion. but they were not having it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think so, Minister Cole, too. I think it
Yeah.
speaks to the condition of, what we're seeing in the world today.
Yes.
With regards to, you have, and everything is political, even when people say it's not. Everything is political,
yes, yes.
especially in this society. And you have people that you have parties that want to divide and conquer. And then you have other people that want to try to bring people together. And what we're seeing is that one particular set of people under one particular race of people, and not all of them, we got to be careful, because everyone that's European centered does not believe that way or think that way. But you have some people who are fearful that they are becoming the minority and that they need to slow things down to get things back, quote unquote, to the good old days.
Ah,
They were only good old days for a certain race, not for
right.
everyone.
No, right.
And it's kind of like the same thing. Earth, the place that kills all of the prophets that come to tell them about how people should be living together, and killing people who are trying to bring a message of hope, and yet they're still not willing. They're still not willing.
Right.
So it just reminds me, that passage just reminds me, it's so indicative of what's happening in the world today. Some things, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
And all of these things are just repeating themselves. They're just repeating themselves down through the generations.
Mhm.
Man, thank you so much for sharing, everyone. This came up in me just now, and I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm not really 100% sure how to phrase it. So this part about where it says you were not willing, what do you think the mindset would have been for the people, or of the people rather, who are like in this space, right? Okay, so say for instance, like they're in Jerusalem, and um apparently they're afflicted, right? So they're needing to be cured. Um, they're afflicted with some casting away spirits or casting out spirits, things of that nature. So there's just conditioning that's happening to them as a human being at the end of the day. And I get it. I understand where Jesus is like, here's my desire. Here's what I wanted. And understanding that I think you have a people too that are dealing with real stuff, real life, real, conditions, and they're not willing. Just like, I guess in that space of asking, is there compassion here? Where could you sit with that idea with the people, perhaps, if that makes sense?
So I think for me, where I would sit with the people is that everybody has the capacity to learn and to understand and to gain perspective. And it's very much individualized according to the circumstances and situations of each person's life. And just because somebody gets something quicker than someone else doesn't mean that the person that hasn't understood or received the revelation is deserving of any less patience or compassion until they get there. And if they never get there, because some people may never get to the point where they may understand like you understand, or see things like you see things, doesn't make them less worthy of you being compassionate to them despite the cause or the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100. Thank you for that perspective. Okay, so let's see here. what did I have for, okay, so 35 really is a short, read, closes us out, and it says, see, your house is left to you. Okay. And I tell you, you will not see me until the time comes when you say, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Let's see here. Oh, hold on. Give me a little extra there. Hold on. 35. Oh, yeah. So overall, that piece, I wanted to know if you had just anything come up for you as far as interpretation around that. Anything from your own words about verse 35. Anything come up in you when you read that?
I have a thought.
I like the thought.
First, when we're talking about these folks who we were expecting to receive Jesus, his Jews, his own people, I think we have to think of their understanding of who Jesus is, and who they expected the Messiah to be and expected the Messiah to do. I think for some of them, they expected the Messiah to come and to get them out of the situation they're in and to be this great king, to take over the rulers that were in place. But they, what they're seeing in Jesus is someone who's coming and teaching and loving and humble and healing and all. But they may not see him as the Messiah that they were expecting. They were expecting a huge deliverance from the situation that they're in, which made me, that's when I read 35, see, your house is left to you desolate. And because they can't see him that way, they cannot receive the liberation that he has for them, which is not a natural one, but a spiritual one. They can't see that because they're looking for him to come and do something in the natural as far as their oppression. So it says, I say to you, you shall not see me until the time comes when you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. It's like they won't be able to fully grasp who Jesus is until that, the fulfilling of that time, which is probably after the crucifixion. You really won't understand who I am. Your house is going to be desolate and in shambles. You will not be able to receive this liberation until you actually see, when all has been revealed. Then you'll be able to get it. So for the other ones who are actually following Jesus, they are learning this liberation already. But for those other ones, they're just not going to get it. Just like with what's happening today. You mess around and find out. You're not going to understand until it comes down to the truth smacks you in the face.
So it gets up close and personal.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I really do. I appreciate that perspective about going back to where Trustee Marlene introduced about that third day or the finished work being a time of when he's going to be crucified, and that being like an event, right, that takes place that has to, maybe wake people up, right, to understand, oh, okay, it was him all along type of thing. And that being still, okay, right, and in some aspects, because it is what it is as far as timing and how people may receive their enlightenment, their awareness, their change, their transformation. And as Minister Renee named, that doesn't make them any less worthy, because if that is their process, even if that, happens to be the case. And I apologize, I left out that word desolate. Thank you for reading it. I just noticed that in my notes. So yeah, that last verse 35 says, see, your house is left to you desolate. That is how that should read. And you will not see me again until so on and so forth. Okay, So here's just, I'm going to close us out with some feedback in my interpretation from a lens that I enjoy providing perspective in a metaphysical standpoint. And so I wanted us to just hold it and talk about it if it resonates with us as well. I called it the source code, kind of be cute. But this for me was about the impact that the condition of the people have on the heart of Jesus. So when we talked about, is there compassion being demonstrated in this? First and foremost, all the way out the gate from the beginning, where Jesus is very clear about what he's focused on doing, which is delivering the people, curing them, right? That's who Jesus is, that's who he was. And so, like I said here, he's focused on their well-being, he's focused on his work and what he has to do. And so he's, I guess, thankful for the warning, but he's like, look, tell that fox I ain't got time. I got work to do. And so in the inclusive version, it said that this was known as the lamenting over Jerusalem. And then the, lectionary piece said it was about the hen and her brood type of thing. And I'm just looking at it from that lens of the lamenting part. And so the weeping, the lamenting over Jerusalem is demonstrating a great love, in my opinion. It's the idea of a great love that Jesus has for hurting people, right? We understand that Jesus, as has been taught to us in this community, that he was the great and first liberator, if you will. And that's just, the truth of the matter, point blank period, that he has a heart for the oppressed, for the marginalized. And so such love is the source of God. I think that it's okay that when we have an idea about Jesus, that we can make a connection to whatever the God of our understanding and the idea of what that may seem like or mean to us, that is a connection of love. And so to me, this is an interpretation of the love for the people. And so I connected that to being the type of love that we get from understanding who God is. And so Jesus is that same source, just as we would say God is the source of love. Hope that sits with you okay. All right, and so what I found is that in that the word Jerusalem in Hebrew means habitation of peace. So we get ideas of dwelling place of peace, possession of peace, foundation of peace, the constitution of harmony, vision of peace, right? And abode of prosperity. All of that from this one word, which in Hebrew means habitation of peace. So just, look at that, write it down, allow it to, seep in to your consciousness about, wow, it's a little bit more than just, a place, right? If you will, and that it represents habitation of peace. And so Jerusalem, the capital city of Palestine, what I've learned is that in Abraham's time, it was called Salem, or it could have been Salem, I don't know. But you'll find here some reference to that in Genesis 14:18, later called Jebus, when it was ruled and inhabited by the Jebusites. So you'll find reference in Judges 19:10, 1 Corinthians 1:4. And so the Bible first mentions Jerusalem in Joshua 10:1. However, in Revelation 2:12, it's symbolically used to describe the redeemed state of humankind. And so I think too, just to lend to the idea that we understand, well, we've said that, he could have been talking about that third day, meaning, the act or the moment of the crucifixion, and that historically people have put that was the ultimate time of redemption or act of redemption. I appreciate that even here we see that we can understand that it can represent a description of redeeming humankind as a whole. Okay, like that's part of Jesus's mission. Okay, and so then the metaphysical definition, it's not different. It lines up with the Hebrew term as far as the definition of Jerusalem. and that it's a habitation of peace. But it goes on further to say, in humankind, it is the abiding consciousness of spiritual peace. Okay. And so I just wanted to, provide that for additional information and knowledge for us to hold. And that, this idea of Jerusalem and Jesus lamenting, to me, again, it's about the heart of Jesus, that he's really like almost just, super compassionate. I'm gonna almost get this real deep sense of emotion behind his goal and his agenda to have humankind be whole, right? The well-being of humankind, right? And so this idea of the embodiment, and that in our consciousness that there's peace to be had, to be in possession of peace, to have peace be a vision for us, or a part of our foundation, if you will. And so not just in a physical sense, but also in a spiritual sense, I wanted us to be able to hold that. And then here talking about Jerusalem symbolizing the great nerve center just in the back of our heart. And from this point, it says that spirit. So some people may say Holy Spirit, which is fine. Some people may say spirit being, another name for God, right? That's fine. I just wanted that to be named, that it's saying that just our makeup alone, like it's even like I said on a physical on a physical level, it says that Jerusalem symbolizes the nerve center behind the heart. And from this point, right? I mean, just I don't know, I get all excited about how we would quote, being made in the image of God, right? I mean, to the very core of us, this is how the divine spirit communicates to all parts of us. Okay. And so now we get to hold that peace is just not this one aspect of like a character trait, right? Or a personality, if you will. It's truly like an embodiment of an actual existence of your being. And that the divine has it to where from the center of us, as it says, the nerve center, the back of our heart is where the divine communicates to us through all parts of our bodies, right? So from your head to your toes, to your fingers, to all of that. I just thought that was a beautiful idea. Okay. The next piece here, I just put that, it says, therefore, to be in a receptive state of mind, Jerusalem always exists. So again, if it's the habitation of peace, then it's all possible, right? It's possible that we could attain it. It's possible that we could embody it. Even like in the way that Jesus said, some of you didn't want it, right? And that's not something that we can say is uncommon, because sometimes you may show up in love and some people just don't want to hear it. That's fine, right? But it's still possible. So it's the idea that peace is everywhere present, that it'll always exist. And I really appreciate that it says that it's a receptive state of mind. And so Jesus wants us to realize this, this deep into the recesses of our soul, that there's a space to where you can tap into the stillness and sweetness that goes beyond expression, right? So that's where we get the consciousness and the idea that there's a peace that goes beyond our understanding. This is that peace, right? And Jesus wants us to experience that. And so even the idea of, he said, I wanted to be like the hen, like Trustee Marlin saying, the mother hen, right? And I love, Jesus obviously male body, but embodying this, this feminine consciousness. I wanted to be that nurturer, that protector for you, covering you, like the hen who would provide and to provide a state of peace, right? And so that is something that I wanted to offer us on tonight, and that Jesus is pretty like he's expressing some duality here. He's like very clear in his tone that he don't got time for what somebody wishes to do to him. He's very focused on who he's here for, which is for the people. And he's clear on that mission, and that he's here to do a work even to the third day, if you will. But it's bigger, right? It's bigger that in this space of consciousness, that is not just an external that what he wants to do, but it's actually a realization that we get to tap into and have that be a state of being for us. And so where I put lastly, our house, right, where he talks about the house, he said, your house would be left desolate. That's your mind, right? Your mind will be left desolate without Jerusalem, without the habitation of peace. That's just another way to hold this, because until we recognize, as he says, until we say, until we open up our mouths, until we identify, blessed is the one. Oh yeah, it was that presence, right? And then we have to do the work on how even we may be looking for the Messiah to show up in our lives today, right? But we get to say, blessed is that one who came in the name of our God, who came to give us peace, to provide us with peace. And again, that peace that will hold us in the middle of night when there's so much loss, there's so much confusion, there's so much, all the things that we get to fill in the blanks with. Yet this is a principle and the truth that can stand for us. So blessed is the one who will provide us with this type of peace, right? Jerusalem exists, and this peace will become our dwelling place, right? So these are just things that I wanted to hold for us in this other perspective that also provides us with truth and liberation. And I hope you can, see that. All right. And so any final thoughts? I want to open it up. Thank you so much for your patience as we had the AI remind us of the technical difficulties, which was the case. But thank you all for chiming in with us, being patient, and being open to dialogue and unpack this with me. Any final thoughts, any 2-second nuggets, anything that stood out? Just want to give that to you. You want to share that?
Minister,
Yeah.
one of the things that I guess I'm still trying to reconcile is the early scriptures talk about Jerusalem being where all the prophets are killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, we're talking about Jerusalem as a place of peace.
Yeah.
It just kind of is contradictory in a sense that you talk about Jerusalem being one kind of place, and especially to say it's impossible for anybody to be killed outside of Jerusalem. Seems is that for true? I mean, is that real that it's just impossible, or is that just a word that was used that you kind of have to define a different way than impossible? Because
Well,
it doesn't really make sense to me.
okay. And I hear you and I appreciate that. I think it's a couple of things, which is why I wanted to pull out when I was looking at that for my research. In the scripture, it doesn't say, even, this is Jesus obviously speaking, but it doesn't say that there's direct reference of prophets being killed in Jerusalem. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nowhere like I could point to show you in the text other than like that reference of Matthew, which really just reiterates in a different way of what Jesus says, right? I mean, we got Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they all kind of give their own different versions of what Jesus may be saying. So I couldn't find anything that showed me that, yeah, there's, historical data that says prophets were killed in Jerusalem. They were stoned in Jerusalem. But it also said too, and let me just go back to my notes, that it did talk about him referencing, excuse me, it said that, let's see, he's referencing a historical pattern of prophets being persecuted and killed in Jerusalem. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking that there is knowledge that he has based on the time and the day, you know what I mean, that he's lived amongst these people, and that's common knowledge to the people that historically perhaps that has been the case. Who these prophets were, they're not identified. You see what I'm
Right,
saying? There's no record to say, oh, he's talking about this particular prophet. There wasn't
right.
anything that could point you to there. But the commentary was that he's making a reference of there being a historical pattern of this happening.
Right.
And the audience apparently understands that, you know?
It
And so
sounds
even Mhm.
kind of sarcastic.
You said it sounds sarcastic?
Yeah.
In what way?
It's like
Oh, you think it's sarcasm? Okay.
I don't know that. It just kind of when I read it, it's just like,
Yeah, just contradictory to what to
like
me.
you couldn't possibly allow anyone to die anywhere except in Jerusalem. So it's just
Yeah. And so I'm with you, Peace, now that you said that, because I'm thinking, well, maybe that was the only thing. I was like, maybe he's not necessarily talking about a literal death, perhaps. Like maybe there's the idea that,
Spiritual?
say it again, Trustee?
You're saying spiritual death as opposed.
Or like, you know, people aren't acknowledged, like DC was saying, you know, a prophet is not honored in their own home or town or something like that. Like people
Oh.
aren't honoring of
Their
those,
own, yeah.
right, those that are there to like help them, or you know, to be different in the way that, you know, they're there for liberation, to help them out of their conditions of like these people need cures. They're dealing with you know, demons needing to be cast out or what have you. And maybe they're not getting the respect or, you know, the acknowledgement that they're supposed to have. So I can't say like a literal, to be honest, because there wasn't much to go on from my my study there. But it also says, go ahead.
Yes. Let's take a look at Nehemiah 9:26.
Okay.
It says, they were disobedient and rebelled against you. They turned their backs on your law. They killed your prophets who had warned them in order to turn them back to you. They committed awful blasphemies. 2 Chronicles 36:15 and 16. The Lord, the God of their ancestors, sent word to them through his messengers again and again, because God had pity on God's people and on the dwelling place. But they mocked the messengers, despised their words, and scoffed at the prophets until the wrath of the Lord was aroused against the people. And Jeremiah 7:25-26. From the time your ancestors left Egypt until now, day after day and again, I sent you my servants and prophets, but they did not listen to me or pay attention. They were stiff-necked and did more evil than their ancestors. So even Jeremiah 26:8-11, you know, it talks about how priests, prophets, and people were threatened, how they threatened Jeremiah to death, right? So there is a history in the Hebrew scriptures that of prophets being rejected, mocked, scorned, and even killed. And we know that Jesus was raised in this tradition and would have known the Hebrew Bible, would have known those stories, would have known those scriptures. So he could have been referring to those passages and passages like that reference people's rejection of the messengers, the prophets, trying to bring them, you know, good news or news that would save them and their people, but they outwardly rejected them.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Let's see.
Minister,
Yes.
I would just like to say on the personal note, when he said, your house is left to you. And my thought is in reference to each and every one of us in our walk with God. We have choices to make. We have decisions to make. We have a relationship with the God of our understanding to build. And we're allowed that opportunity. My judgment will not be your judgment. Your life will not be accounted unto me. So I'm grateful that we are given the opportunity to receive or reject the word of God on a personal note. Just like I believe it was Joshua said, for me and my house, we are going to serve God.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful that we're not judged altogether, or, as we like to do in our culture sometimes. Jesus is a fair God, a loving God, a compassionate God, and will leave us to our device, will receive us and bless us. So I'm grateful for that. That's my final thought. Thank you.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
But
Appreciate that.
Minister Cole, it's
Yeah.
just like when we are like, I remember when I was a kid and I wanted to do some things. I remember you started out by saying, about the situation that your brother had, because he made a choice or a decision to go somewhere, and and that decision didn't, turn out to his best favor, but yet still God has compassion on him because he survived it.
Yeah.
No matter whether or not it was a good choice or a bad choice, he survived it, and God's compassion is still covering him, right?
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I remember my mother saying to me, some of your decisions you don't understand, and you'll regret later when you do get an understanding, right? And so some people can't see what other people can see, or may not have been in the same situation or a different situation, in order, or have not had enough experience to be able to put together that this may not be the best thing for me. And I think that's where the verse, some are not willing, comes in. A lot of times people are not willing because their understanding hasn't been open to that degree.
Sure.
And because our understanding, even when we're younger and we've made some decisions, we really didn't understand a lot of the things that we were doing. We thought we were grown, but it wasn't until we actually got in it or survived it and learned the lesson from it that we understood. Now I know what my mama meant, or now I know what my aunt meant by I shouldn't have went, or I should have stayed home, right?
Yeah.
And so our job is never to judge someone else's decision making. Our job is to try to understand them from their perspective of why they made it, and to still continue to pray for them whether or not we agree with it.
Yeah. Yep. I appreciate that. And while you were sharing that, I also was thinking about just I'm thinking about myself real transparent as far as, my own conditioning. I call it my programming, right? So, the power of choice is very powerful, very real. And I know that there's times to where I'd be like, man, I really don't want to keep like going down this particular road. You know what I'm saying? Because of the impact or the outcome has me feeling like XYZ, or you know what I mean, after the fact. Yet I notice I keep doing it. And that's where the work comes in, right? In terms of the level of awareness, where I'm like, dang, God, you know I need help. Like I need help. Like the prayer just gets simple, right? I need help because apparently there's some conditioning here. There's some programming that I call it that has, excuse me, been in existence for quite some time. And that seems to be the go-to, but I don't want that anymore. So there's, it's just different, levels and aspects, but just thank you for bringing that up. It's like, it ain't even about me being young. No, I mean, I'm young, you know what I'm saying? But it's like just from some conditioning, right? Choices are being made, and that's where we get to ask for the divine's help. So, thank you. All right, so I'm gonna I guess call it. It feels like that may be all the final thoughts we may have. If there aren't, feel free to jump in, because it's always open. But again, I just want to say thank you so much for your patience, for the capacity to hold each other and hold me, as I, lead us in the class tonight. all of you that are watching us on tonight and maybe coming back, if you didn't get a chance to catch us here while we're live, but you stumbled on us, we appreciate you so very much. You can find us here on our YouTube channel at the Columbia Project. We also, so two things, you can find us at the Columbia Project, which is also now AKA UFC Columbia. So just know if you type either one of those in, you'll come right here where we are. So thank you for doing just that. But you'll find us on Tuesdays, 7:30 to be exact, here in the Zoom platform is where we're coming live from. So just go ahead and type that in if you happen to have that downloaded and you want to meet us on Zoom before we go live. We would love to just, check in and fellowship. We lift up each other in prayer and share any testimonies and praise requests. Lift up praise reports. That's right. Sundays, you'll find us also here on the YouTube channel, but also on our Facebook. We go live 12:30, about 12:30-ish. And if you happen to be in the Towson or in the Maryland area, specifically Towson, we would love to fellowship with you in person. Excuse me. So just look out for us there, 120 Allegheny. Just put us in Google. You'll find us. The address will come up. But certainly, we're open to all donations. You can just scan it right here. That QR code will take you to the platform known as Zephy, and that's where you can contribute. We appreciate your gifts and just want to bless you as freely as you're able to give, 100% freely. God will bless you, and we just thank you. So our hearts are open, and we're just going to send you on your way. Please like and subscribe, and definitely share this ministry, because we are love in action. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. God bless you. And I want to say good night.
Good night, everyone. Blessings.
Thank you, Minister.
Stay well. Thank you, Minister. Absolutely. Appreciate you.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Minister.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Have a blessed night, all.
Travel safe.